Today on the Cooligans, we are talking about the incredible and insane weekend in Major League Soccer and why Higuaín was being roasted by the Philadelphia Union.
That's right. Plus, we talked to Calen Carr. He's got a new podcast coming out called The Movement. Plus, he tells us some insane stories about Cuauhtemoc Blanco and his time in MLS. That and more today on the Cooligans! Yeah, baby!
Yes.
What happened to my voice?
We are in the building.
That's right. Our own buildings. Okay, we're still very remote.
Our buildings are 6 feet apart. Okay,
yeah. we specifically requested that they be moved slightly.
Okay, yeah, we had to do a lot of rezoning and a lot of permits were required.
The paperwork alone was hell, but you know what? Nothing is too much for you guys.
Okay, yeah, we told Fubo we won't work under any other conditions.
Y'all got money, spend it.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Cooligans. My name is Christian Polanco.
And I'm Alexis Guerreros.
All right, we are your favorite stand-up comedians that host the funniest soccer show that has ever existed on television, on radio, on
your phone, in the web, in the interwebs, all over. It also happens to be the gulliest of all those things as well.
Correct, and we have a great show today. We're going to be joined by Calen Carr of MLS. Obviously, he's a former player and host and presenter. He's a dear friend who we bump into on the subway.
And we heavily roast every time we're on any microphones near him. So
yeah, there's something about Calen that it's just like you just want to roast him.
He's roastable, you know. Like, I'm not trying to say, like, your being, your vibe is causing me to have to say these things. I don't want to be this mean.
I feel like it's just nature. I don't know what to tell you. No, but
you think we want to bully you, dude? No, I'm joking. He's a good friend. Look, I wore this for him, right? He's always talking about fashion and all that. Look at the drip, huh?
Okay, looking good. That's
right. That's an old Aberdeen kit. This might be from 2000, right?
All right, no doubt.
Right, Scottish football. I don't know if that accent is good or not.
I'm just gonna assume it's bad. So a lot to talk about today. Obviously, like a couple weeks ago, we had Matt Doyle on the show, right, of MLSsoccer.com, and he was talking about how there's just so many games. There's just so many things to cover. There's just a lot going on right now in Major League Soccer,
especially this weekend. There was like 45 games at the same time. I was like, this was great.
There was a lot. Like, even if you have like a multi-screen, thing, you can't even watch every game. You know what I mean?
You need to be in one of those control rooms, like those. You know what I mean? Where there's just like a screen every five
MLS,
inches.
I don't got enough bandwidth to watch all these games. I'm trying.
Yo, fam, how many gigabits do we need of internet?
There's a lot, but I want to focus on one in particular because the Philadelphia Union hosted Inter Miami in a very rainy, very wet Subaru Park. Okay, all right. It's the WAP is wet ass park. Okay,
wet ass pitch.
Wet ass pitch.
Also, I love that the rain did not stomp down any gulliness during this match whatsoever.
Not at all. And obviously, the big news and the big focus was on Gonzalo Higuaín. Obviously, moved over from Juve, the lesser known Higuaín brother. And when it comes to MLS.
I love it. They're like, yo, Higuaín, welcome to MLS. Here's Chester, Pennsylvania. And he's like, okay, all right, I see how it's going to be. This ain't going to be an easy introduction. Nah, fam.
Nah, dude. It was a rough game for him, right? He had a couple great chances. There was that he almost had a bicycle kick that went off the post. Yeah, that was insane. But really, the main
all the news is the penalty.
The penalty. He gets there was a penalty. I believe there was a handball on Kasper Shibilko and in the box. So
it's rather impressed with your ability to say Shibilko.
Yeah, dude, bro.
That's one of those you have to listen to how someone says. You can't read that because there's like a squiggly line.
There's a P. It starts with a P. You're ready. It throws you off.
You're like, what's going on? Am I supposed to?
So handball on Shabilko. And this was already a bit of a shock to me that it was already Higuaín's penalty. Like it was already decided. Even though Pizarro's there, there's other players that have
no conversation.
No conversation. He was like, "Yo, I get off the plane.
Right.
I'm walking to the penalty spot. Right. That's how it works."
Like, as soon as the whistle was blown, he looked at everyone's like, "Y'all know this Higuaín time, right?
Okay.
Y'all better not even touch that ball."
And the Philadelphia Union were not having it, right? Nah. Because he obviously misses the penalty, skies it. So look, when it's typical Higuaín, right? We know we've seen him in Copa Americas, we've seen him in World Cups.
It's like making pancakes. The first one, right? That one's a throwaway. You're just trying to see what's up, right? Right? You're just trying to see how hot the pan is.
Yeah.
The first one always gets thrown out. You give it to the dog or something, and that's what he was doing. Put a little gift in the stands for the stewards.
Of course, I should have addressed it as the pancake rule. Everyone knows the pancake rule.
Right? No one here listening or watching had to think, what does he mean? You all knew exactly what I meant.
We knew exactly. Yes, we know the system. What am I, an animal?
Okay. You think I don't watch this sport? I don't know about pancakes.
So misses the penalty, but really what happened afterwards was what was so incredible, because everyone on the Philadelphia Union, even though they were up 2-0, were celebrating so hard that it was
Glesnes basically sky fist pumped inches away from Higuaín's face. But Higuaín wasn't even mad at him. He was mad at somebody else.
Glesnes fist pumped so hard. I think he gave Higuaín like a fade. You know what I mean? Like it was that close. It was that close to his head.
You know what I'm talking about?
Oh man, I wanted just a number 3.
Damn, also, I think you got mosquitoes. Something just.
So and then, but it would look like Higuaín got really upset with Kai Wagner, right? He was directing his anger at him, and then Brujo Martinez gets in the way, tries to stop everything, but instead of trying to calm everybody down, mediate things, he did the wah.
He's like, yo, don't fight, but also here comes a roast. You know what I mean? Like, I'm gonna stop doing. Don't you dare hit this little baby. You know, hit this little baby bitch ass.
Yeah, why don't you cry? Why don't you cry on your $7 million a year? How about that?
Yeah,
you know,
why don't you take a private jet to go get some Kleenex for that crying?
It was incredible. There was just so much going on.
But doesn't it seem like the perfect thing for a Jim Curtin team to do? We've had Jim Curtin on the show, friend of the show.
But it's so strange because Jim Curtin comes off as much more chill than that. But I imagine behind closed doors in the locker room, he must be like, yo, I need you roast Pipita as soon as you get out there.
Well, as soon as he steps on a pitch, get in his ass.
Like, yo, Jim, I didn't know this was. I thought you were just a dude that like nice sneakers.
Brujo's like, him. Cálmate.
Nah, incredible. We got all these great messages of people being like, yo, how gullies are the Philadelphia Union right now?
Wow, gully.
And we were talking about that in the Western Conference, the Sounders are dominating, but the Eastern Conference is looking like, Philadelphia Union really got something to say. So it's quite impressive. All right, everybody. A lot more to look forward to. Calen Carr is on the show today, so come right back after this. All right, welcome back to the Cooligans Living Room FC. Calen Carr is on the show today, so stick around. Make sure you watch that. But I want to start this segment real quick with a little unboxing, a little reveal.
Hey, we got a little unboxing.
It's hard to see because of the reflection, but we got some stickers here from True North Elite and the shirt that I'm wearing, the True North Elite Black Lives Matter shirt. So shouts to True North Elite for all this awesome stuff. We appreciate it. This came from Chad Benty.
Chad Benty, which if you don't know, is the largest cup you can order at Starbucks. right?
That's great. Yeah, I'm sure he will love that. The Chad is an awesome dude. Gully Squad member. We met him when we went to Minnesota and we did the show with Miguel Ibarra and
with the hats. Yeah,
the live show. It was great. He sent a letter. He says, "Dear the Cooligans, shouts to you, the Cooligans, from everyone in True."
Shouts to us. He's right.
From everyone in True North Elite, we just want to say thank you for everything you have done and continue doing during the COVID lockdown and protest. You guys are killing it out there in the soccer media world. Thank you for continuing on and giving us that great Cooligans content of D yelling at Alexis during a Twitch stream. And thank you for your great ADD-filled quote-unquote commentary on the watch-alongs. Keep up the great work on bringing great guests every show, and thanks for asking my dumb questions that I ask sometimes. Thank you for the invite to your Zoom birthday parties. Can't wait to do it in person. Hopefully next time. You two are the best, and keep up the good work. Love you guys. Also, shouts to the Gully Squad. You are all the best. Your friend Chad Benty. Chomp chomp.
Chomp chomp. Let's go. Thank you so much, Chad. That was so dope.
Amazing. Yeah. True North Elite, everybody, for Dark Clouds, everyone in Minnesota has always been really kind and really supportive to us. So thank you. All right. So speaking of things going on in soccer, let's try to get to this. Given that I'm wearing a Black Lives Matter shirt, I want to just give a shout out to San Diego Loyal because they did something really, really incredible. Obviously, I don't think I've
ever seen this before.
Yeah, it was obviously a very unfortunate thing where a player from LA Galaxy 2 used the N-word on a San Diego Loyal player. It was everything was confirmed. We know who did it.
He admitted to it.
It was there were witnesses or whatever. The player's been released. But the interesting thing here is that the San Diego Loyal have forfeited the match and are not accepting the point.
They said they won a point. There was a draw, but they said that they don't even want to be associated. They want to be on record as having any part to do with that game because of that incident, which is, I've never seen that before. Someone saying like, yo, take our name off the whole thing. We don't want to be a part of it. And just shouts to San Diego Loyal for standing up for their player, which I wish we would see more in Europe. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So hopefully this really sets a standard and a precedent because this is a very bold statement and it's the right thing to do. So shouts to you, San Diego Loyal.
Absolutely. That's awesome.
For doing exactly that.
All right. Let's come back. Yeah, that's right. Because we got Calen Carr when we get back right after this. All right, baby. We're back on the Cooligans Living Room FC, and our guest is finally here. Christian.
It's long overdue. The highly esteemed.
Yes. We have been begging this man. I can think back to about 4.5 years ago when I saw this dude just hanging out on the train and I got real close to him. And I was like, yo, you on MLS? I'm a comedian. I got a podcast. Be on it. And he was like, and I think he was searching for Mace at the moment.
Well, that's usually how we book our guests. We have Alexis.
It's very aggressive.
A real close talker. That's how we got Landon Donovan. Kind of muscled him onto the show.
He was like, this is my floor in this elevator. I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about because you got to get around me, my G. Okay. I'm not going to be as easy Algeria's defenders. You
ain't leaving until I get this agreement that you will appear on our program.
Right? The producers have co-signed it. Fubo loves our booking style. But this dude, you know him, he wore a helmet while he played, right?
Yes.
Houston Dynamo, Chicago Fire. And you're like, the helmet, it probably was more function than fashion. And then we got to meet him after the game, and we're like, that was 100% fashion. All right? Because this dude likes to stay on the cusp. In fact, so much so that we're about to talk about a podcast that he's got coming out that was just profiled on Hypebeast. And could you find a more perfect publication for this man? Ladies and gentlemen, unless you're driving, MLS's own, our good friend, based on that subway altercation. Ladies and gentlemen, the one and only Calen Carr, everybody.
What's up?
What is good? Yes. Honored to have you on the show. It's been too long. The streets have demanded it for a long time, and it's finally happening.
I forgot about that subway interaction actually until now. I remember it vividly now, though. I was on the F train, and I was going across town to. I was playing a men's league game, I think, and I was like, I had my boots and everything like that, and. This might surprise you. I don't get recognized much in the world. You got to go deep. So it felt kind of good. It felt nice. But anyways, thanks for having me on, guys. I'm really happy to be here.
You're like, it
Yeah,
felt
yeah.
good, and then I talked. You're like, ah.
Yeah, it's like being recognized, but for the wrong reasons by the wrong person.
I thought it was maybe for my men's league exploits. I was in my prime in men's league those days.
Imagine I was like, why didn't you ever play in MLS? I know that round. You were so good.
Calen, dude, like we said, we're huge fans of you. I mean, we obviously been watching. We saw you play. We watched your work on MLS, soccer.com on MLS's broadcast. You right now are obviously the movement, which is a video series that you've been doing for a long time. Has spanned the globe. You've done so many awesome things.
I think 34 episodes, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Wow.
And being getting like coverage of just different things related to soccer. But right now, and I want to spend as much time as possible talking about this because I listened to the first episode of the Movement podcast, which really focused on the Black Players for Change organization and the movement and everything that's been going on this summer, which has just been, obviously either with tragic and then these positive things that have come from it. The podcast is incredible. If everybody watching and listening, make sure you check it out. But what was this experience like for you? What triggered the idea to do this? And then who are you now after? Because listening to it, I can imagine that the conversations were difficult, painful, and so how is everything now? How are you right now?
I would say I'm good. I'm here with you guys, and I think it's been cool to see how. This summer, a lot of conversations that, frankly, I was having with players, former teammates or friends, maybe behind closed doors or in kind of quiet corners of locker rooms or just kind of casually, are now coming to light. And more people are talking about it in media and in soccer media specifically, which is a really positive thing. Terrible circumstances that have brought this on, but also not new circumstances, not circumstances that are, the long predate this podcast and will sadly continue beyond it. And it was one of these things where we've traveled around and talked to a lot of these players around, whether it was, we just did a piece in the video series on the El Paso shooting, and Alejandro Bedoya, when he grabbed the microphone and said, hey, Congress, stop gun violence, do something now. Or even when you go further back and we look at some of the issues, we did one in Pulse nightclub shooting in Orlando. So we've done multiple episodes around this. We've looked at different cultures and communities that maybe haven't always had the voice or the opportunity to, have their perspectives heard, or that, and now we've seen that sort of across sports media and the sporting landscape where people are speaking out. And that has a long legacy, but also a pretty long one as well as soccer. And we've seen really the women's side pushing that conversation forward through Megan Rapinoe and the NWSL, and even on the basketball side with the WNBA and the NBA players speaking out. But now it feels like there's this new wave of players within MLS that are really, over the last, I would say 4 years especially, pushing that conversation forward. And it's been little by little, and I think people are just starting to listen more and more. But as the conversation happened, kind of like everybody, I was sitting and watching what was happening with George Floyd. First, that murder happening. Breonna Taylor was before that, but then that kind of sparked the energy for people to start speaking about her case. Then I was in Atlanta for the quarantine where my girlfriend's family lives, and that's where Ahmaud Arbery was killed in Georgia, and then Rayshard Brooks as well. And so I started going to protests, and I was seeing people from Atlanta United supporters who were seeing me. I was posting about it on social media. And some of the fans were like, hey, let's link up. We're out here in the streets too. Can we get together? We're organizing. They were kind of using some of the sort of essence of a supporters group or the structural organization to make signs that I actually just sort of walked by and saw one for George Floyd. And I took a photo of it, and they were like, hey, this is Guerrilla Company. That's our supporters group. We make that sign. We put it in a visible area for people to see. So I started seeing the soccer community really stepping up and being a part of this. And right around the same time was when Ray Gaddis hit me up. And Ray's a guy that I've gotten to know for a while now, from either playing against each other and then through Warren Craval, who's a really close friend of mine. And we were just at his wedding in Houston last December, which was like my last social experience. Which, I mean, we went pretty hard. It was really fun, and tons of MLS players, CJ Sabong, Ashton Morgan, a bunch of people were there, but we probably would have had even more fun if we would have known the world was about to shut down.
Exactly.
But Ray hit me up and was like, I'm back in Indianapolis and I'm going to protests in my hometown. And he's like, how can we get this story out there? And I was in Atlanta and I was like, looked it up and I was like, it's a maybe 6, 7, 8 hour drive. I don't have a car. I don't know how to get there. I don't have a camera crew. I don't have any of the things that we normally would have for the movement show. And I was like, maybe we could just do an audio interview and capture that. And then from there it began to grow, where I was like, I've always wanted to talk to Jeremy Abobasi about this. Like, how's he doing right now? And then I was like, right where George Floyd was murdered, Ike Opara lives a mile away from there. And I talked to Ike on a movement episode a year before about police brutality and what it's like for him as a black man in Minneapolis when he leaves the stadium, and the threat that he feels at times. And so it was, it kind of began to go, and then the BPC formed. We saw what happened in Orlando on that opening night, then with the Philadelphia Union changing their names. So I just kept calling people up again and following up on the story. And sadly, it wouldn't end. I mean, we thought we had finished the episode a couple of times, and then there was another murder after the next, where I interviewed people in Atlanta about Ahmaud Arbery, and then it was Rayshard Brooks. And I was like, oh, well, we have to go back and talk to people again. And then it was MLS returns to their markets, and then it was Reggie Cannon getting booed in Dallas, and then it was everything that happened with Zoe Hansen in Salt Lake. So it was just this story that continues and will continue to go, sadly, but also I was really moved and inspired by these players being willing to talk to me about it, share their experiences, and the way that they have organized collectively to push for social change.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to cap that point, it's just like how awesome it is to hear the players and the work that they're doing, and it really comes off. It doesn't sound like you're talking to athletes, right? It sounds like you're talking to purely passionate activists that are trying to change the world, and it really is incredible. So we have some more questions about that. So we'll talk a little bit more about the Movement podcast with Calen Carr right after this. All right, welcome back to the Cooligans Living Room FC. We are here with Calen Carr of MLS, and so we were discussing the Movement podcast, and especially that first episode. But the interesting thing is, with the last couple months, there have been. It has been pretty incredible that Major League Soccer has really listened to its players and listened to the BPC organization to kind of help make change and not be, like the NFL was very adversarial with Colin Kaepernick. And you're starting to see that the culture is changing so much where that would be ridiculous, right? But there's still some not everyone is going to get it right the first time immediately or in every single instance. And one of them, you mentioned the Loy Hansen kind of things coming to light, and some people are critical of MLS, especially like sort of the response, and there's almost like this pussyfooting around like what the exact problem is, and still being kind and being patient with people that kind of either say awful things or do awful things. What is the being working for MLS and trying to deliver this message? Do you feel a sense of either responsibility or duty to like kind of get everyone on board, or kind of share the message that you're trying to deliver, even with your own like coworkers?
Yeah, well, I think everybody right now has been tasked with having to look at their own community and look at their own immediate, whether it's your family, your friends, people you interact with on a daily basis, your coworkers, whatever, or yourself. And I think that's something that I've tried to take on. And I just think, especially at a time like this, it's very easy to point out the window and say, that's wrong. right? You watch the video of these murders and you're like, yeah, that's wrong. We can all agree that it's horrific to see it. And that's, sadly, it's taken, in a lot of these cases, the video to actually prove to people that this has been something that's been going on for a long time. And, but it's a little harder to sort of look out the window at some of the injustice you're seeing and realize that in some ways that's a mirror for your own community or for your own self or your own life or your own, place that you are in. And I think that's what we've all been tasked to do and what I'm trying to take on to do alongside people. And yeah, racism doesn't just exist in the streets, right? It exists in football, it exists in soccer, it exists in our sport. And I think it's been easier to some ways look abroad and say, oh, you see what's happened to Raheem Sterling, or you've seen what's happened to Mario Balotelli, or you've seen it happen in these other places in Syria. And that's their problem, right? That's not our problem. That's not something we have to deal with. And then you start to look a little bit deeper and you say, well, racism doesn't just exist in the ways that are so obvious where you just can't ignore it, right? Where it's the way somebody would, do a monkey chant or in the sort of conceptions of racism that we all accept are wrong. But it exists in these sort of small, minute ways, whether it's in the media and the way we talk about players, or whether it exists in how we select players for our team, or whether it exists in our structures, right? Like the structures of organizations or ownership. That's not immune to the structures that exist in our society at large. Mm-hmm. And so I think what's happening right now in MLS is people are beginning to examine some of that and people are holding up the mirror, and by people I mean the BPC, and I think communities around them and people who support them to say that, this really isn't right, and what can we do to make it better? And in some cases, that's been painful to watch. And my thing is like, we can't only respond, I'll speak as a league or as a soccer community, in moments of crisis. Right? Like we can't just respond when something is wrong, or you got somebody tweeting at you, or you have somebody who says something terrible in the media. Like those are the easy and obvious times, I think, all right, wow, what do we do? But it's a lot longer journey and a harder road to, not in moments of crisis, but in normal times, to have this just become a normal part of your life, to say, okay, we're not just not racist, we're anti-racist, or whatever it is. Like we're working to create access or opportunity and to make sure that we understand that soccer isn't just this little bubble, right? It's not this safe bubble that exists. That's just this beautiful little thing that is just naturally good. That's the point I was trying to make at the end of the podcast. It's like, not to give it away, but just to say that like, we are not just in this little snow globe of perfect harmony. Like there's a lot of things where the forces outside really do affect us. And the structures within it need to be changed as well.
I only sing Kumbaya in the supporter section. I don't know what you're talking about.
It's, the part about this disease, about COVID-19 that scares me, is that we can't all hold hands for 90 minutes with the opposite supporters, which we all do.
Per usual.
That's every day. I mean, when you look at your podcast, was it a conscious decision after you got all these interviews to say, like, I think we can convert the video series, which is probably very difficult to do right now, to this audio thing? And do you think it'll have the same translation? Do you think it'll be different? Are you looking for maybe an evolution of the idea? Where's your head at as you see it sort of going into our realm? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I've got to be careful with that, because during the commercial breaks, you're like, hey, you're talking too much, man.
I never said that.
I just, I don't know, actually. It's a really good question. I really don't know. I think my sort of hope is that we do both, and you just kind of let the stories decide which one fits best. Right now, it's just this was the best way to tell this story at the moment in a safe way. But it's something I've been wanting to do for a long time, is to do an audio version of the stories as well. And the cool thing about it was, if you go to like Portland, and I only hang out with Jeremy Abobasi, it's just a Portland story. And whatever I get in those 4 or 5 days there, you get on the plane back to New York, it's over. That's the end of the piece, right? Yeah. And there's something really nice about that. And there's some, because from a work standpoint, but also from like you're capturing this sort of capsule. But this one kind of opened things up in a way where I could talk to players from so many different cities, and you could still capture some of that same feeling of like you're riding along with me to Atlanta and like going out to a protest, or you're going to feel what it feels like for Ike in Minneapolis or Ray in Indianapolis. Minneapolis and Indianapolis. So I think in some ways that was kind of a cool surprise for me to realize like, oh, I could talk to people multiple times. Like you just got to get on a Zoom room. And I think for when we look at soccer media overall, like the way you guys have adapted, I don't have to come into the studio necessarily or be in New York to be on your show. Whereas that might open up some possibilities to get more perspectives or people involved that otherwise it would be a little bit harder.
But but now I can't see them on the subway now.
I do miss the subway in a strange, weird, twisted way. It's like,
I'll be honest, look, the movement, audio podcast about Hawaii is not really the same as actually going there.
That needs to be a video episode, yes.
Without a doubt.
We also can't see you walk in 120 frames per second on the audio podcast.
Yeah,
so.
No.
Is it
I'm
even
still
really
not sure how I got away with that one. I was like, he's there. He's going to teach me how to surf. It's going to be good. Let's do this.
I think that was one of the first times we hung out was in the All-Star game in Chicago, and Alexis was doing the impression of you doing this one foot in front of the other at the what is it?
Typically on train tracks, graffiti in the background, soft music playing.
If you can find a way to do that on a podcast, I would really. I've been trying to figure this one out for a while. It's hard. Alexis that was a good impression, I will say. Like he like I don't know if he'd been practicing in the mirror, but I feel like he was definitely had the slow motion, the whole vibe.
Oh, yeah. He was waiting on that one. He was like, buddy, when I meet Calen,
I'm gonna show him my move. Man. We got more with Calen. We get back after this. All right, we're back on a Cooligans Living Room FC. Obviously, we're here with Calen Carr of the Movement Podcast. Calen Carr also happened to have played in MLS. I don't know if you guys remember that.
Well, he must have known somebody when he got the job. Interesting.
Let's look back at your career a little bit, because we were in Chicago for MLS All-Star, and we kind of messed with you a little bit. We were roasting as you were trying to film stuff, just ruining your budget. And the one thing I noticed is that you are beloved in Chicago. You're not just liked. Like when you walk by, everyone's like, oh, that's Calen Carr. Calen Carr is here. Why do you think that that city connected with you so strongly?
I don't know. I mean, I remember when I first showed up to the club. I mean, the first meet and greet you do, like all of Section 8 already knew everything about me. Like I pulled up and they were like, hey, you went to Berkeley, your mom's a professor, like you went to Brazil when you were 16 to train. And I was like, you're going from being like a college kid eating burritos in Berkeley to being like, oh, I'm a professional athlete now. I don't know if anybody's going to know me. And then everybody immediately was like, had done all this kind of research on me and were really eager to get to know me.
Dumped a stack of paperwork like, this is all Calen Carr. We know.
Dude, you cheated on this test in high school and they haven't. You're like, why is that?
That's the kind of player we need here.
Yeah. Wow.
No, but it was awesome. And then I don't know. I think MLS players in general are you see it even when I look at guys now, and you go around the league and you look at like Zarek Valentin is a guy that I think of a lot, that pops to mind as somebody who's just like really gone out of his way to just be a normal dude and is a normal guy and is just meeting people. And you go around to like almost every club, you see this. I remember Roger Levesque in Seattle, and like, I don't know if I ever ascended to those ranks, but I just think MLS players are unique in a way where you're not making, well, some dudes now are making millions of dollars, but I sure wasn't. And you just kind of get a chance to connect with people. There's less barriers to entry to get to know fans. And that was always something that I kind of enjoyed about it. Like, I mean, you could see it in the work I do now. I enjoy, like you guys do, like linking up with people and meeting through playing sport. And so I never looked at it as that much different than just like than that, and meeting people. So, and then my mom would come visit Chicago, and she had lived there and gone to University of Chicago. So, like she knew everybody from the ushers to the fans to everybody around the club. So the club was in a really cool place when I arrived. There was like CJ Brown and Jim Curtin and Chris Armas and like all these really legendary players that were able to kind of like usher me along and show me the ropes of how to be a professional and like what it means to play for a club like that. And so it was a really easy place to land, especially when you look at like Chicago's just a great sports town. We opened a brand new stadium. Now they're going back to Soldier, but it was just a really fun time. And I lived with like two dudes that I grew up with in the Bay Area who were just like, you know, working normal jobs, but we lived in like a 3-bedroom spot over in like, you know, I think we were in South Loop. We moved around because, you know, young guys, but it was a really fun time in my life. And
you kept trashing every apartment you lived in. I get
it. What's this chain on our door?
They would go party on Friday nights, and I'd be like, oh man, I got a game tomorrow. But if you guys want some tickets, come through.
We'll believe that.
What about you were there while Cuauhtemoc Blanco was there? That must have been absolutely insane. I mean, this connection with the Mexican community in Chicago, which is awesome. Like we've hung out a lot in Pilsen, in that area. It's just incredible.
What also was legend? I mean,
legend as well. Yeah, the governor Blanco, of course. Yeah. What was it like playing with him, and then that connection to the fan base when he arrived?
And did he ever make you pay for a meal?
No, he was good about that. He was really good about that. I mean, I think guys were actually nervous before he came because you had heard about Cuauhtemoc and just like he's just a crazy personality, a massive star. And so you're like, we had a pretty good locker room and we were like, well, is this gonna like, this could go really bad. Like this could be crazy. I don't know what this is going to be like. And it was crazy for sure. It was nuts. But in a really good way, in a really fun way. Like he would him and I actually became, I would say, pretty close friends in the time that we played together and just really kind of got along. He called me spaghetti because of my hair. I had like the curly hair, and he would like.
So you've been getting roasted your entire life, Cam.
It's not us. It's not just us. I'm glad
it prepared me for this podcast. Yeah, I think he called me cuerpo chihuahueño, which was like little,
like a chihuahua, what
like little dog body. I remember him like.
That's a classic big dude roast of a guy. I would call Christian Birdchest when this podcast started, which is like that gets it off me being too big. It's your fault for being too thin.
Yeah, we need to. This is how we need to bond and connect. Us thin, frail folks. These big dudes been attacking us for too long.
No, we got to stick together, man. But I wish I had you in the locker room back then, because he tied me to a rolling chair and pushed me out into the Toyota Park Bridgeview parking lot with the whole front office is like upstairs looking at me, and I'm just like sitting there in my training gear with my hands on my back.
Cuauhtemoc Blanco is an '80s bully from a movie.
A frat hazer is what he is.
But it was all love. Like it was. I don't know. I kind of loved it all too. It was really fun, and like he gave me a lot of belief on the pitch as well too. And we kind of had we had Juan Carlos Osorio who came in as the head coach around the same time, and we went on this incredible run and got into the playoffs. I was starting playoff games. Like it was really, really fun. And we went to Mexico with him, which was insane. I remember there was one time where this guy came to watch us train. I think we were in Aguascalientes, and this guy shows up in a Volkswagen Bug, and it was All America, painted All America. And he takes off his shirt, and he's got a tattoo of Cuauhtemoc's face right on his shoulder. And then another one of him doing the like Aguila celebration.
Oh, yeah, right.
There it is. Yeah. on his back. And I see him sign his forearm with a Sharpie, and he's got this elaborate signature. It's massive. It's like, it's a long name, and he just goes all in because he wasn't shy. And the next day, the guy comes back and it's tattooed over the, over the Sharpie. And I was like, oh man, I know this was around the time of Beckham. And I was like, Beckham is crazy and that's amazing, but I don't know if people are doing this, like dedicating their whole body to someone like that. And just to go to Mexico and see, not even Mexico, I mean, we went to Salt Lake, we go to LAX, people would leave their shift at the airport to just, I don't know if they quit their jobs and just be like, I don't care. I'm going to get this autograph.
Get on whatever seat you want. I got to go see
it was like traveling with a rock star. It was like the affection that they had for him and like what he meant, I think, coming from where he came from, I think in Pepito, which is like a really rough area. He told me it's where you go if you lost your, if you got your like car stolen or your radio stolen, that's where you got to go to buy it back. So just like a guy that was blue collar, represented like the culture and went and did it at the, highest level for his country. But he brought it every day in MLS and every training. He used to get kicked like crazy and played through it all. And just one of the best teammates I've ever played with and just funnest characters ever to be around.
Yeah. So. Incredible. Calen's just like a comedian recognized me on the subway,
So similar to your tattoo story.
Yep. That was big. That was big for me. Don't undervalue that. That was big.
All right. We'll be back with more Calen Carr right after this.
All right, we're back on the Cooligans Living Room FC, and we're here with Calen Carr of Major League Soccer and obviously the Movement Podcast. Go check it out wherever you get your podcasts. Right after you download, subscribe, and leave 5 stars for the Cooligans. Right after that.
That's it. It won't play unless you do all those things first.
Which I think is really cool of you guys to put that on there. When we look at your career, to go from playing and the era you did, which is just past sort of where teams are getting contracted. And it seems like your career was at the beginning of the change for MLS to sort of be the league that it is today. Looking down at the league that you're, now working for and seeing all the changes from this perspective that you now have, obviously it's got to be exciting. What do you think could possibly be next? Like everyone is always asking, like, what's going to happen by the time we get to the next World Cup or possibly by 2026 when the World Cup comes here? Players are getting sold to big European teams. We're developing players at a faster rate and at a better rate than we ever have before. No disrespect to you, obviously. Like, what do you think is going to happen? What do you see for the next few years for MLS?
It's exciting. I mean, I do think about myself and how I would fit into this new MLS. And I wish I played in this version. I think everybody probably who played in the earlier versions would say that, where it's like the facilities, the infrastructure. I mean, I was just kind of at the dawn of some of these soccer specific stadiums that were exciting. I got to open up one in Chicago and then one in Houston. But like, we didn't have really academies. And right when we started the academies, the kids that came in, it was like a ton of talent, but what's really the plan for them at times? And then now you see you go through and talk to some of these coaches in their office, it's like 2, 3, 4 depth charts into the academy. When will he project he's 15, at 18, we think he's got a chance at 8, then we move him on to Europe. Like what I'm seeing now is just totally almost unrecognizable. And that's just from the playing structural side. Then you go to, being in Atlanta in front of 70,000 at MLS Cup. Hope we get back to a safe place to do that type of situation again. Yeah. And the way that the league is expanding so fast that I almost sometimes don't even know, what year is Charlotte or Austin? I mean, and it's switched. It's just almost hard to keep track how fast it's growing. And for me, I look towards 2026. And I think that's what we all are kind of keeping an eye on. And just really, even if you just look at Canada and how much that program has changed from the club level, and then also now with the, not just MLS, but the other leagues, and then the national team, and the fact that Canada's going to host a World Cup. And I just remember when I was, 12 years old, the World Cup 94 was in the US, and I went to watch Brazil play USA play at Stamford Stadium with my mom. And I just remember seeing those canary yellow jerseys, and I didn't really know what else was going on, but I just I wanted in on that. And how that changed my entire life. I'm literally have devoted my whole life to this sport. And from a professional standpoint, personal standpoint, all of friends, people that I interact with. And so I just think about what that could mean for kids in Toronto or Brampton or Edmonton or like wherever it might be. And then even in the US as well. So, Mexico's already got it. Like they don't need that cultural part.
Like this whole thing again.
Like, oh yeah, here we go.
It'll end up we'll end up having like a Canadian Premier League team win the CONCACAF Champions League.
Forge Hamilton is going.
Hey, if you made a team in Brampton, we did an episode there. And Ayo Akinola is from there too. Every time I see a kid come through and be like, "Oh, he scored a hat trick," and I'm like, "Where are they from?" Oh, yeah.
I don't know what you talk about. Ayo Akinola is American. Come to the men's national team. We should talk about Brampton.
He's never even heard of that place.
Never heard of it.
Yeah, keep working it. But, there's a lot to be excited for. I mean, this year has been hard on everybody, and I don't think you can underestimate like what has happened or like understate what has happened. But I still look ahead, and with some work, I think there's still a lot to be to look ahead for.
Hell yeah.
I mean, and we're going to look to you to be on the forefront of getting that message out there of not only MLS, but just to get these players to be more, they'll be superstars by the time the World Cup comes around. And it'll be because, they appeared on the movement or so on and so forth.
Look at this show. Like this show didn't exist long ago, right? Now you started out the podcast, now you have a TV show, and just the perspective that you guys are talking about is something that really hasn't been covered in the past. So I think just as you look at all of these little things compound to create something much bigger. And so, I commend you guys for I feel like you guys have that kind of like hustler spirit and drive to make it happen. And that's really important. We need that.
Thank you. Right, you're right. We mad important.
Hopefully we make it to the 2026 World Cup. We'll see.
You're not just important because I ask you for like fuboTV discounts. And
Well, we send it to you every week.
We the plug as well. All right. We'll be back with more Calen Carr right after this. Thank you again for checking out another episode of the Cooligans. We appreciate Calen Carr absolutely crushing it on the show. So, Calen, before we sign off, is there anything you want to let people know about? Anything you want to plug?
I just want to say thank you to all the people that participated in the podcast, all the players from the BPC, the supporters in Atlanta and across the U.S. I probably should plug my social handles, CA Squared on Instagram, or CA2 on Instagram, and then at Calen Carr on Twitter. But I want to give a special shout out to Warren Craval. He designed the podcast art for the episode alongside photography by Ethan White. Check out Warren's brand Craval. It's craval.co. And then please check out the podcast. Give it a listen. I think it's an important perspective at this time, especially. And you can find that anywhere you find your podcast. It's called The Movement, like the video series, which is on YouTube, 4 seasons of that. And thank you guys so much for having me on the show.
And anytime, brother. Yeah, and I again highly recommend checking out the podcast. It's really, really good, and it is very I got emotional listening to it. It's very, very powerful stuff. So it was a great introductory episode to the podcast, which is already a great video series. So all right, so everybody, make sure you follow as well at Soccer Cooligans on all social media platforms. Follow at Fubo Sports, and make sure to subscribe to the Fubo Sports YouTube channel for full episodes of the show. So let us end the show the way we normally do. So for Calen Carr, my name is Christian Polanco.
I'm Alexis Guerreros.
And together, what are we?
The Cooligans!